Becky, and today I'm jumping on to do a quick August wrap up and a September TBR. Last month was not a good month for me. I think it took me more than half the month just to read one book because I was in such a reading slump, and then suddenly in the middle of the month, nearer to the end of the month, I read a book that I loved, and then I was reading another book that I also love. It was just so long, and work has really picked up since last month, so I'm really busy at work most days, and obviously working from home still, there's never really time to shut off. So I'm going to tell you the books I did read last month, and then I'm going to talk you through my TBR for next month, although next month is not that ambitious as it's going to be so hectic with work. I'm already predicting that I'm not going to be reading as much, unfortunately. So last month, the first book I read was The Hunter and the Mage by Kaitlyn. This is the second book in the Raven and the Dove series. I think there's meant to be 4 books, and this is one that I did put on my TBR last month, and I'm really glad I read it first. I really enjoyed the book. The only problem was with me, as I was in a reading slump, but I was really enjoying the read, and it covers straight off from the first book that I read, which I'm going to try and not spoil too much for you. But we get reintroduced to all the characters we learned about in the first book. We also meet new ones, and we learn a lot about all of them. The 2 main characters, Rafe and Lyanna, mature a lot throughout the book and learn a lot about themselves, and there's also a lot more magic in this book than there was in the first one, which I really enjoyed because I'm someone who loves having magic and fantasy in their books. I'm not going to say too much because it is the second book in a series, and I'm bordering on spoiler territory if I talk too much, so instead I'm just going to leave the links down below if you want to read more. The next book I started reading was The Doors of Eden by Adrian Tchaikovsky, and I'm really enjoying it, and I have not finished it, but I have read most of it, so I'm including it in this wrap up because I'm going to include it because I didn't really finish that many books. But basically it's a sci-fi book set on Earth, and the sci-fi doesn't come from being in space. It actually comes from the fact that there's parallel universes and you can go in between them, and each of these different worlds has had a different evolution. So there's kind of the assumption in most parallel universe books, shows, films, whatever, that in a parallel universe you'll have all the exact same people. They're going to be humans, they're going to be exactly like us, but they're going to be slightly different. And this book takes that and goes, no, actually in a parallel universe, humans might not be humans. They might not have evolved to be humans. There might have been a different creature that evolved quicker or better or faster. That is the kind of main intelligent race of the world, and I really enjoy it. It's not actual aliens because it is from our world, but there's aliens in it, and then there's dinosaurs at one point, there's different creatures, then there's like a plot for the end of the world and saving the world as well, and there's lots of different things that I'm really enjoying about it. It's just the only reason I haven't read it is because it's gotten so busy at the end of the month, and I did read up to page 359, so I believe I'm about 150 pages off finishing it, so I do think I'm going to be finishing it this week. I'll probably be finishing, this is the only book I'll be reading this week. And then the third book I started reading, and I did actually finish this book, was Fable by Adrian. Basically, when it comes to physical books, I love reading physical books, but when I go to bed, I like reading my Kindle because I can fall asleep with my Kindle and not worry about it falling off the bed or damaging the book or having to turn the light off. I think it's definitely one of the laziest things I do, but I enjoy reading in bed until I fall asleep, and I don't have to bother about turning the light off or anything. I can just fall asleep whilst holding it, and I can drop it on the bed and it'll be fine. And that's how I use my Kindle. So I started reading Fable by Adrian, and wow, that book captured my attention so much that I was actually reading it during the day as well, when I wasn't using it as a tool before I go to bed. I literally kept waking up the next morning and like picking it straight back up to read more until I had to work the next day, and I really enjoyed it. I initially said in my last month's TBR that this is like mermaids or pirates, which it isn't at all. It is going to be on the sea, on a ship, and it is kind of it's kind of a pirate adventure feel to it, but they're not actually pirates. And it just has some great characters. I loved Fable, I loved West. I even enjoyed the Saint character, who is Fable's father, that you learn about in the blurb. I'm not going to go into too many details, but I really enjoyed how they all stayed in character and they were all their own people due to their upbringing, and it was explained to you why they were like this, and how they acted was purely based on their character and not to push the plot forward. For example, there's kind of the assumption that Saint doesn't love easily, and he doesn't let it affect his actions, and to protect himself and those he loves. You can see throughout the book that when he's being horrible, you do understand his reasoning for why he's done things, and I really enjoyed that. It also left you on a horrible cliffhanger, which I'm so annoyed about because I want to read the next book so soon, and it doesn't actually come out until March next year, and it doesn't even have a UK publisher, so I don't even know when I'm going to read it, but I'm so excited to find out what happens to these characters. And then another book I did start but I didn't finish, and I'm not going to include it because I think I only got like 10% in, was The Year of the Witching by Alexis Henderson. That was on my TBR last month, and yeah, I didn't get around to finishing it, and I've only read a little bit of it. And then the final book that was on my TBR from last month, actually no, there was 2 other books on my TBR last month, and one of them was To Sleep in a Sea of Stars, and I basically swapped that one out for this one because the e-arc version that I had was really badly formatted, but apparently they fixed that so I can read it next month. And then the other book was another sci-fi book, I think, which was Every Sky a Grave. And honestly, since I've done my TBR for last month, I actually think I've forgotten what that book is about. All I can really remember from it is that there was a main character who enforces people to follow the rules, and then she changes and decides that she might not agree with the rules. I think that's what it's about, but I didn't get around to reading it, and I don't know if I'm going to get around to reading it next month either. But yeah, let's move on to my actual TBR for September. So like I said at the beginning of the video, work is so busy at the moment, and it's only going to get busier in September because we have multiple product launches, and I am already very stressed. So I'm giving myself a fairly easy TBR. My first book to be read is actually going to just be to finish The Doors of Eden, and like I said, I'm probably going to finish it this week because I'm already so far into it and I'm really enjoying it. So really easy, just finish a book. Then the other book is another book that I've already started reading, and that is The Year of the Witching by Alexis Henderson. This book, I don't know where it's going. I think I'm 10% in, and we've met Emmanuel, we've found out about her family's past, I should say, not her past. And her mother there's some witchy things going on. We find out a bit about the community they're in. It's kind of an enclosed community, no one really leaves or comes in, and they are led by the prophet and his apostles, and it all feels very religion focused. I'm not sure whether it's going to be based on a real life religion, I don't think so, but I'm not sure at this point. It does sound a little bit like Christianity. I don't know if it is going to be based a little bit on Christianity or not, because some of the things do remind me of it from when I went to a Church of England school. And then yeah, I don't know what's really going on in this book. Since I've already started reading it, I don't want to read the blurb and accidentally spoil myself for anything, as I like going into books blind, which is why I do my TBRs at the beginning of the month, and then I don't have to, and then I normally forget about what's going to happen, and then I read them and I'm like, oh yeah, this is good. So I can't really say much more than that at the moment, but I'm hoping I enjoy it. And then the third book I'm going to put on my TBR, which I haven't started reading. No, I have actually started reading it, but it was really badly formatted, so I'm going to have to restart reading it. And that is To Sleep in a Sea of Stars by Paolini. And this is another sci-fi book, and I don't know why the past couple of months I've been really into sci-fi. And basically we're on a... You know what? I think I have actually forgotten what that book is about since I started reading it. But basically I wanted to read it because I really loved the Aragon series when I was growing up, and I wanted to read more of Paolini's work. It's a little bit different. It's something that I'd definitely be interested in because it's sci-fi. I'm trying to think of what I read, and I don't think what I actually read really told you of the plotline, but I believe there's going to be something uncovered that's bad, and then things gonna happen. I should go read up on it. Okay, so I quickly went to read the blurb for To Sleep in a Sea of Stars, and the premise is our main character Kira, who I do remember from reading the first chapter or two, uncovers an alien relic, and that alien relic basically starts a war that she is thrown into. It's actually, the premise doesn't sound too out there. It sounds like lots of different films and TV and books that we've read before, but listening to Paolini talk about it with Tchaikovsky in the blogger brunch we had a few weeks ago, it just sounded really interesting, and I was really intrigued to see what's going to happen, because he has done a lot of research into this, especially with the sci-fi elements, so it should be good. If any of you are reading any of the books I'm reading next month, please let me know what you thought of them with no spoilers. And if you've read any of the books I read last month, feel free to DM me to scream, especially about Fable, because I'm still not over that ending. And thank you for watching, and I really hope to see you again next week.